You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/CheapGeek. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast, episode number 182.
A time traveler's warning, life after death, Unsolved Mysteries is back, and Chupacabra.
Yeah. So here we are again. Welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast, episode number 182. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. This is the CreepGeeks Podcast, and if it's your very first time tuning into our podcast, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
And the 182 means we've done 182 episodes so far.
Not counting Patreon exclusive episodes.
That's true, and we still haven't learned our lesson. Yeah. Okay, so this podcast is really a lighthearted approach to things these days, and being the way 2020 is being 2020, why not?
We need some lighthearted.
That's right.
Stuff.
A little levity, a little levitation, if you will. Right?
No, that's not the same thing.
It works. Just roll with it. Let's go. We have a lot of stuff to do. A lot of stuff to talk about. All of it's mediocrely interesting.
Such confidence in us.
Yes. Well, you know, I was going through it, and hey, I deleted somehow or another the previous 182 and had to come up with this one. So when you blink, it's gone.
Yeah.
Get it? Blink 182.
Oh, gosh.
Tom DeLonge.
DeLonge.
That's how you spell it, right? So anyway, moving into the podcast, just to kind of let you know, we have a phone number for you to call. And with this phone number, you can leave us a message, or if you'd like to kind of reach out and maybe tell us a little something.
Oh, yeah.
You can certainly do that. That phone number is
575-208-4025.
That is correct.
Be sure to leave like a complete message and let us know what's up.
Yeah.
Not, hey, call me back.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a problematic problem for us because we broadcast our podcast from an underground bunker in the in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah. Where the internet's not so plentiful for us.
And neither is cell phone signal.
Absolutely.
I'm not walking a quarter mile into a spooky cornfield just to listen to your voicemail message that says, hey, call me back.
Now, if we sound, like we're not into this, remember, this is 182 episodes deep.
Of phone calls like that.
Yeah. So anyway, moving back into the podcast, we have a lot of stuff we like to talk about. And one of the things that we do like to do is kind of share different ways you can get a hold of us and interact with us. And one of those ways is our Facebook page.
Yes. CreepGeeks Podcast.
Yeah, we like to share funny stuff, memes and such, lighthearted things there, little humorous type things to look at that you can digest in a second and scroll on.
Yep.
And if you do see what you like there on the podcast, a little thumbs up and like and whatever all the stuff you can do to show us positive affirmations is appreciated. Yeah. So, a couple different things you can do. You can check out the podcast and listen to us anywhere you want. We're on iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, Google, what did you call it?
Google Play Podcasts,
Google Play
Apple
Podcasts.
Podcasts, iHeartRadio.
Yep.
You mentioned Spotify already.
Spotify, yep. SoundCloud,
most major Android podcast players.
Yeah, actually, anywhere you can pick up a podcast, you can pretty much pick us up. And if you're running the old, what's that third-party operating system for phones now? Because you've got Android, you've got iOS, and the third one starts with a K. Can't remember. It'll come to me. But, yeah, we're on there now, too. There's a podcast player that you get from the Kaizen? Is it Kaizen? Kaizen store? Went right out of my head. Anyway,
Kaizen.
Yeah, Kaizen. It's an operating system designed to work on really inexpensive, low horsepower phones.
Oh.
Like, for example, these are phones that you can still flip. They don't have touch screens and things like that. Back in the old school, like you hit when you want to spell a word like bat, it's like you got to hit, B 3 times, like 1, 2, 3, and then get that kind of thing. Remember that back in the T9 touch days?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an operating system that runs on these inexpensive phones. And the thing about this is that since these inexpensive phones are inexpensive and they're plentiful and you can buy them all over the world. For example, India is looking to have like over 3 billion activations coming up.
At least I think
with these really inexpensive phones.
Watch, I'm probably totally wrong.
Kai? Is it Kai? I can't remember, man. That's going to bug me. I would look, but it looks like you were doing it, so there's no reason for us both to blow the bandwidth.
Well, you could check your email.
Well, I could, but then I have to actually open my email, and that's the thing. I'll tell you later on the show. But anyway, it's an operating system. It works on these really low-dollar phones, and it has a little store that you can go into, so it's not iOS, it's not Android. It's primarily a web-driven phone operating system.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's going to be pretty big. And there is so far like one podcast player on it, and we're on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I sent the guy an email. I was like, hey, how do I listen to our podcast on this thing? And he was like, oh, you mean podcast submissions? And I was like, because he answered right away. I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, in order to be listed on Pod LP, you don't have to do anything at all. It just shows up because it's taken from the RSS feed, which is how most people listen to podcasts. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And he's like, let me check that for you. And then, I checked back to my email later on, and he was like, hey, thanks for checking. In fact, it was missing. I've gone ahead and added it. FYI, it may take 1 to 2 days before it shows up based on CDN and local caching. And thank you very much. So we are probably one of the few paranormal podcasts that are actually listed on Pod LP on that third party. I guess it's not really third party, is it? It's like third operating system. It's supposed to be, Kai. It's Kai OS. So it's KAI OS. And, you can buy a phone for like $17 and basically use that flip phone or that dirt cheap phone, like way back from like 2002, right?
Yeah.
And have modern conveniences like Google Assistant and things like that. So you can talk to it. So it has like voice recognition and things. So you could say like, hey, Google, and what it is, or, okay, Google, whatever it is. So basically it's kind of like this thing now. It's the trend. So, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you're going to see this get pretty big in the future. And you're going to go, you know what? A paranormal podcast talked about that. And you're going to go, yeah. And you're going to go, yeah, do you remember what it was called? And you're going to go, yeah, it was like CreepGeeks. It's like pancakes and paranormal.
Just CreepGeeks.
Yeah, CreepGeeks. Yeah, the CreepGeeks said it. And then you can look up CreepGeeks, and it's not going to be us. Yeah. But anyway, I digress.
A lot.
Yeah. Moving back into the podcast, talking about things we find to be interesting. We do like to have some things in here that, are public service announcements, right? And since coronavirus is the hot button term for things that are all things sucky right now, we've been going through in every podcast, we've been talking about the latest coronavirus search terms.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you know, up 5,000% since the first time we've talked about this, symptoms of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Just see, we forgot. And we've been gathering in groups now all over the place because all these states are doing their phased rollouts and like phase 2, let's bring everybody back online. And it seems like people have forgotten the symptoms for COVID-19.
Well, also, and this is where I'm having a big problem right now with media, is the fact that different media outlets are now reporting from different medical organizations that the symptoms have either changed or there's different sets of symptoms. But when you listen to all of the symptoms, they sound like they're all grouped together and they could be anything.
Yeah, like for example, before it was like, oh yeah, you're going to have like respiratory problems, that sort of thing, and now you can get the poos.
Yeah.
That means you have to poop a lot.
The poos one was always there, but now it's things like skin rashes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or oh man, what was it? Insomnia now? Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah. It's like, it's just general things that you would have if you have any possible seasonal ailment.
Yeah, so now it's like the coronavirus is like WebMD.
Yeah.
Sort of like reference, if you look at anything on there, you're like, oh, I definitely got this.
But then you have a lot of like fake news infographics being shared on social media and people don't know what to believe. And
paranormal podcasts telling you about coronavirus search terms.
Yeah.
Like symptoms COVID-19 to 5,000%. Right? Benefits of social distancing in coronavirus is up 4,300%.
Yeah.
Florida closes bars is up 3,700%. I wonder why they're doing that.
Oh.
Because they're all gathering together and spreading the COVID. Our bar's closing again in California, up 800%.
Arizona just announced they're closing everything up again.
So Arizona's closed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens. It's like people are like, I got to get out there, I got to do stuff. I'm tired of being cooped up. I'm broke. I need money. Let me get back out there. And then they have these phased rollouts where things are slowly opening. And guess what? This is like not even the second wave. This is still like a culmination of the first wave of infections. Yeah. And, whether you believe in COVID-19 as a virus or not, or some kind of conspiracy or whatever, it's still a bug and it's still out there. And, hey, I'd watch out. Wear a mask. And people are like, I ain't wearing no mask. You'll pry my mask off my cold, dead face.
Have you seen...
It's like, well, thanks, man.
So there's another chart going along with this whole unemployment and causing, as Google puts it, the outbreak has caused economic chaos and uncertainty.
Yes.
And it's just this roller coaster of statistics. Basically, things do not look good when it compares unemployment to the stock market. And then right below it, further things... testing for coronavirus is being searched for across the country.
Yep.
And that is just staggering. It's like up, down, up, down. Depending on the day, you have anywhere from just a couple people searching per hour to, hundreds searching in an hour.
Yeah, it's a thing, and we've been kind of holed up, trying to stay away in the bunker. You've been going out and doing some good work. You've been doing the good works to trying to help people out and making food boxes and doing things like that. And I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but you've been going out there wearing the mask and doing the diligence, man.
I work front lines on a food advocacy nonprofit, which means right now they're supposed to be about improving how food systems work in rural communities. Well, during the pandemic, it's not necessarily food systems. It's just getting the food to people. And a lot of people are facing economic uncertainty.
Yeah. And people are hungry.
And people are hungry, and people are getting laid off, and all sorts of horrible stuff. So we're doing food
And see, that's
pantries.
the thing, right? Okay,
Yeah.
So we run into an economic downturn, which is a nice way of saying people don't have jobs. A lot of their jobs went away. People are kind of broke and all that stuff because we've been told not to work.
Yeah.
And people that normally work and maybe normally have jobs and have never experienced this sort of thing because they've been, let's just say gainfully employed most or not their entire lives.
Yeah.
What happens when that turns off? Like, where do you even reach out to find any kind of information at all? Like a lot of people don't realize with the work that you're doing and a lot of groups that do the same thing that have these, let's just call them events where, you have like 500 boxes of groceries that hand out to people.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say hand out as in like, hey, take this. It's a handout. Handout as in handing it over to them. Like, don't even bother getting out of your car, man.
Distribution as well.
Yeah, distribution, right? Yeah. I mean, I never knew anything like that existed, really. And I don't think that I would have been even knowledgeable on where to look for something like that.
And
it's so helpful because it's like you show up, you answer 2 or 3 questions and you get food.
And here's the thing.
That's useful, man.
Regardless of politics and things like that, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management
Administration,
Administration has policies in place during a pandemic where the nonprofit that I work for, organizations like the nonprofit I work for are activated or, initiated. No matter where you live, anywhere in the country, there's a nonprofit or some sort of association that has been activated by FEMA to help the local community, whether it's the National Guard or a food pantry or even like a local church.
Yeah.
And they're in place to provide food for people who have been economically displaced.
Yeah, so which is a lot. I mean, how many unemployment?
And here's the thing that still I do not know how to stress enough is, regardless of politics, this has already been set in place with our federal government. These resources are available. It's just nobody knows about them.
Yeah.
So
anyway, we're telling you about it, and we're going to have links and stuff like that to our local area in Western North Carolina in the podcast notes. So if you listen at all and you want to share the information, please, by all means, do so. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, and it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And I would go out there and help if, I could.
But.
And I'll be honest with you. I don't want to. It's hot, and it makes. I have a titanium and cadaver bone neck.
See, here's the thing about that. I don't want you to because you received cadaver bone, which means you are...
I am titanium cadaver bone man.
When he got his neck surgery, he received cadaver bone, so that technically makes him a transplant recipient.
Hear that? So, I'm a cyborg.
Yes, he's a cyborg. But
I'm a bioorganic.
He is a high-risk, immunocompromised cyborg for the next 6 months.
Is organic a word?
And since I am on the front lines, that means I come into contact with all sorts of people, so I have to get regularly tested. And everywhere you live, the local health department should be offering you free COVID testing.
Bioorganic.
Would you stop? I am trying to help people.
You are very helpful. So moving into the podcast, or back into the podcast, we're done being helpful. Now it's time for some entertainment.
Yes.
One thing that we all, well, I guess we should do this too. We also have that was part of our interesting random factoids, which we like to do, but we also have another one called interesting random FDA recalls. Mm-hmm. Which are usually interesting and slightly random by the list that they have. And this is basically things that have been recalled by the FDA, hence the name, right? And this list is ever changing, and it's always interesting when I go back and check it a week later. Like, if, for example, if you like the chopped salad kit with shredded iceberg lettuce and more from a company called Hy-Vee,
but that was on
be aware.
Yeah.
No, this is as of today. It might have possible cyclospora contamination.
Oh, so instead of the cashews, now it's got cyclospora.
Yeah. And then if you like Sanoderm hand sanitizer, advanced hand sanitizer, under the product type drugs, it has the potential presence of methanol.
Which I want to talk about that one. So it hit the news headlines last week, towards the weekend. You know, this hand sanitizer may kill you. And that was false. What you need to do is pay attention to what they're saying in the news and then go look it up for yourself. And things like this recall website are where you would probably go. Because some of the news headlines I've seen circulating in the social medias were, this hand sanitizer's...
Sanitizer. That's your gamer name.
Yes. Is deadly. But one of the people I do nonprofit work for, she had a bottle of hand sanitizer in her vehicle, and it kind of exploded.
Well, that's what happens when you put something that's primarily alcohol-based in the sun in a container.
Yeah.
It creates a loud boom effect.
Yes.
So if you like garlic shrimp poke from the garlic shrimp poke family or company or whatever, it may have some Listeria monocytogenes. You might have some Listeria in it.
Monocytogenes.
I wasn't going to go that far with it, but just know that it's got some Listeria type stuff in it. And if you like Whole Foods and you like their red velvet cheesecake slices,
which I do,
it has undeclared walnuts.
That's upsetting.
It's like, what? I am a walnut.
That is the last thing I want in those. Ew.
Yeah, it's undeclared. I don't know what that means exactly. Oh, but here's something that may affect some people. If you like the Enlightened brand chocolate peanut butter ice cream, it may contain undeclared milk ingredients. And I'm thinking to myself, and I am slightly educated, and I'm coming up on 50 years old, but I thought most ice cream was made with milk. But I don't know. It could be the Enlightened brand.
Bland, that's exactly
well,
what
it is kind of bland because it's chocolate peanut butter ice cream. And I hate to say this, but chocolate peanut butter ice cream, even the Reese's stuff, is not the same.
Oh, wow.
Either the peanut butter is not sweet enough, or it's too sweet, or the chocolate's not sweet enough. And it's just this, it's like, stop messing around, man.
So this Enlightened ice cream, they have many different types, but primarily they focus on low sugar, low carb, high protein, low fat, high fiber ice cream.
Okay, so what you need to do in order to basically check out to see if it has undeclared milk ingredients, is you need to go ahead and take it and get a couple scoops, probably about 4 or 5 tablespoons, right? Put it in a bowl and let it sit for about 2 minutes or so it kind of melts a little bit, and then scoop that crap right off in the trash can.
They have a whole keto line, yeah.
Again, right off in the trash can, just like Fresh Express, Giant Eagle, and Moore's old-fashioned coleslaw. Same thing. Let it sit till it gets a little bit of, liquid down at the bottom of it, that little milky looking stuff. It's not really milk. It'll help slide it right off in the trash can. Oh. There you go. So, okay, I'm going to move in the podcast and talk about some news now. This is the stuff that we do like to talk about. And one of the things I came across by doing some research I thought was pretty interesting, actually, was what happens after death.
Okay.
Yeah, and what makes this a little unusual is since our podcast is primarily U.S.-based, although we do have a lot of listeners in Australian places like that. Yeah. This is from the Mirror UK, or the mirror.co.uk. So these are primarily British people, right?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, I wonder, if people in different demographics and different countries and have the same sort of experiences. So I figured I would go ahead and take a look and kind of get an idea, right? Well, then I found out that this article actually come from a Reddit subthread. So, I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that that came out, I thought was pretty interesting. And so we figured we would talk about some of these, right? And the first one is, it's little section is called like reading a book.
Oh.
Okay. And this guy's name is Monitor Monkey. So... And it kind of goes like this. 5 years ago, Monitor Monkey underwent major surgery during which he bled out, causing him to be dead for several minutes. And here's what he said of his experience, right? And I'm just assuming it's a him because I don't know very many monitor monkeys that would be a female thing. I'm just, I'm making an assumption, probably wrong. But anyway, whatever, right? It says, I woke up in what looked like space, but there weren't any stars or light. I wasn't floating, so to speak. I was just there. I wasn't hot. I wasn't cold, I wasn't hungry, I wasn't tired, just a peaceful, neutral kind of thing. I knew there was light and love somewhere nearby, but I had no urge or need to get to it right away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I remember thinking over my life, but it wasn't like a montage, more like I was just idly flipping pages through a book and snippets that stood out here and there. Whatever it was, it changed my thoughts on a few things. I'm still afraid to die, but I'm not worried about what happens after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, me too. You're just kind of like, here I am.
Yeah.
Let me just kind of hang out. I'm not floating. I'm not falling. I'm not, you know what I mean? It's just, you're just kind of there. It's kind of like you're in a holding pattern, man. It's like you're in the cache. Like your cache in your computer, just kind of there. Just there.
What do they call that? It's not purgatory. What is
it wouldn't necessarily be limbo either. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of nice. So the second one is called A Visit from Someone Dear. And we heard this before, and this person was basically thrown from his motorbike while cruising at about 50 miles per hour and was medically declared dead when he was taken to the hospital.
Ow.
Yeah. And as he lay in the road before the ambulance came, he recalled someone he knew encouraging him. And he says, I just remember being on the pavement and things slowly going black and quiet.
Oh.
This is the part I didn't like, that part.
Yeah.
Because, that's the same thing that happens to you when they put you under for surgery.
Yeah.
You just kind of slowly go black. And that's what happened to me. I broke my neck. We went through all that stuff. And they said, hey, you're going to have surgery. And if you don't, you're going to, your options are basically surgery or death. Pretty much what it kind of boiled down to from what I remember. And I don't remember them giving me something to make me sleep or any of that stuff. I just remember them going, okay, we're going to do this. And then it just kind of went slowly quiet and black. And I remember waking up, like looking at this giant television, had no idea where I was. I thought I was in a hotel.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. Because I didn't know what was going on. So it's like, it took me a while to figure out kind of what was happening. But
see, my problem, apparently, according to everyone else, every time I've ever gone under, it's usually, and people say this, yeah, you were saying something or you were mid-sentence and you went under. And I was there when they woke you up and you finished your sentence and you were trying to spring out of bed and fight.
That just means you can't let shit go. That's what that means.
No, for
but see,
real.
That's kind of my point, though. It's like the very first thing I read where the guy said he wasn't here, he wasn't there, he was just there. I remember that part of just being somewhere. And then, every once in a while I get a little blip of something going on. I think I was fighting some nurse or something, just a little blip, but not like enough to really remember. And then poof, just kind of waking up watching like a bass show or a saltwater fishing show or something. I was like, because it was just crystal. It was like a 75-inch TV. It was really nice. It was because at the time, we did not have like real television, right?
Yeah.
Because we cut the cord. We were digitally streaming since 2008. When we got here in our undisclosed location in Western North Carolina, we didn't have that. So whatever we watched was streamed, and it did not look as good as that. And I'm like, wow. And then I had like a nose in the throat and I couldn't swallow. It was just,
heaven plays fish and show.
But it was great, man. I'm like, wow, it was just crystal blue. It had to be Florida, man, because it was like crystal blue water and all. I'm like, this is amazing. Yeah. Okay, so this guy, he gets in this motorcycle wreck and he's laying there dying, right? He remembers just slowly going black and quiet. And he says, the only reason I didn't fall asleep was because of a bizarre moment when I heard someone yelling, Ranger. Or Ranger up, you candy. Well, I'm not going to say what he says. Come on, man, get up, right? And somebody was slapping his helmet, which was basically smooshed really hard onto his head.
Ooh.
And he says, when I opened my eyes, I saw my brother squatting on the pavement next to me. This was odd because my brother died from an overdose several years ago.
Oh.
And the only thing I remember is him glancing at his watch and saying something like, they'll be here soon, and then walking away. And he said, I wish I could give more detail, but honestly, I don't remember much of the incident and still have trouble with my memory as a result of the accident. That's crazy. Yeah. So his brother was telling him to basically ranger up, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of nutty. And yeah, so that's kind of a thing. It's kind of weird, right? And so everybody's having these weird sort of experiences, you know? And then they're all slightly different. That's kind of why I like this. But the third one is called a garden. And it says, while many users describe their death as being like a void, this guy's name or lady's name is called I Died for a Bit. Mm-hmm. Had a very different experience after an allergic reaction which caused their heart to stop. And it says, I remember a feeling of being sucked backwards, extremely slowly, like being pulled through water, and this blackness fading in and out.
I've heard about that, though.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I don't like that, right? At one point, it faded back in, and I was staring out at a garden. It wasn't filled with flowers, just dust and patchy grass. There was a playground and a merry-go-round in the middle, and 2 children running around it, a boy and a girl. And it's difficult to describe, but I got the feeling that I could choose if I wanted to stay or leave, but every time I tried to go back, I was held in place. I went through all the reasons I wanted to go back, and when I told the presence I didn't want to abandon my mother, right, whatever had a hold on me, finally let me go. And I snapped back into my body, and my heart stopped for 6 minutes.
Wow.
See, I like the ones where you're just kind of like, yeah, it's cool, man. I'm hanging out, doing my own thing. And this is like, you need to make a decision.
Yeah. And
it better be the right one. Because every time they tried to go without voicing their reason to go back, they weren't allowed to go back.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, remember, we met a very practical, no-nonsense person in Spruce Pine, and he told us about his life after death experience. And his was weird because this is a person who doesn't believe in a lot of the same stuff we do, doesn't really have much draw to it, but apparently he had wrapped him and his motorcycle around a guardrail.
Yeah.
In very bad winter stormy conditions or something. And they found him and he was technically gone. And he says what he had was like a quick fade to black, like a quick one. But then he was in The Price is Right. It was like a game show.
Yeah.
And it was a game show kind of like, and the Price is Right music was playing, but it was pieces of his life.
Yeah, see, and that's kind of what I'm beginning to get a little bit of a theory, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the severity of your accident, depends on how fast you fade into whatever.
Yeah.
And then whatever you're familiar with, or in a way that makes sense to you at the time, is whatever pops up in your head. Like, for example, he was the game show.
Yeah.
You know, sort of a cavalier, hey, let's take chances, you know, sort of replaying of your life. Right. And the other person was like his brother was trying to get him. And then one person at a dusty old playground with a boy and a girl playing, which whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's whatever your mind means. And like this guy at the very beginning, he was just in the nothing. He was just basically in the not here, not thou, or not there, just sort of in the middle. Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I think that whatever it is whatever it is. And it's all individual, which makes these experiences so different. But one thing is you go dark, which kind of makes sense if you're shutting down. It's kind of like, you know.
Yeah, because he was going to pass away from exposure.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you're kind of dying.
Injuries,
and I think when you get put under for surgery and things like that, or even when you drink to the point where you're going to pass out, that's the closest to death you're going to get. I mean, honestly, that's one of the things that I remember talking to somebody about back in my younger days when you drink till you pass out, you know, which that's not the goal. If you're a youngster listening to the show and you're like, I'm going to be 21, I'm going to drink till I get passed out. That's not the goal, man. That's the closest you'll be to death. Mm. And a lot of people die. You know, they asphyxiate or whatever.
Yeah.
And I forgot what I was going to say, but you know, I think it's kind of the same thing when you get put under. And it kind of goes into whatever you're dealing with or whatever is good for you or makes sense to you is whatever you're going to be shown, whether you have to make a choice or it's not your time, or it's time to move on and go find love and light or whatever, you're going to have to make that choice. Right?
Yeah.
And what's kind of weird is like, remember that show? We actually talked about this before, Jodie Foster in First Contact, when we talked about the Very Large Array in New Mexico. Remember, she went.
Yeah.
And she wound up speaking to what was basically her dad, and her dad had died or whatever, but it was a way that she could deal with it, and she talked to him for a long time. That was what was presented to her in a way that she could understand and communicate. I think it's kind of the same thing.
But
I mean, who knows? But it also, I mean, I don't know why I thought about that, but it's like Remember they said, when she came back, well, what happened? When they were like, nothing. You fell through the little spinny thing. And then later on after she left, it was like, and there was like 13 hours of recorded footage or whatever it was. But
no, it was 49.
Was it?
Yeah, because it was like such a key. It was like she kept saying, I have to have been gone for like 2 days or like 2
yeah, but they
hours
didn't tell her that
yeah.
it was like 49 minutes of whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. It's just kind of a crazy thing, but yeah, and that's what's kind of weird. Well, I guess what probably the scariest thing is, scariest thing would be is like if you do this and you're in the process of being dead for a while, and there's just nothing, but you're not happy, you're just kind of like I don't know, because then does that open up a whole new ball of waxing? Like, what if there is no choice for you to make, and you're just kind of like, that's it?
I don't want to think about that.
Because then that would be, you wouldn't know if it's a second, a minute. It's like a dog, right? A dog doesn't know whether you've been gone for 10 seconds, 10 minutes, or 10 hours.
Stop. I have a hard time with death.
I know, but I'm talking about like, how dogs are super happy to see you?
Yes.
And they're like, oh my God, hey man, it's so good to see you. It's like, dude, I just walked outside and walked back. I'm like, what? Because they don't know, man. They don't know whether you've been gone, which is good for them. Because if they're hanging out on the couch when you go to work, and you worry about like, oh, I've been gone all day long. If they don't know, if they're just laying on the couch in that little sort of like limbo state, to them, you just left.
Okay.
That's the best way to think about it.
I hope so.
Because what you don't want to do is get on the internet and watch those videos of people's home security systems where they're...
What is that?
I have no idea. We just had some random tech device say that it's having a hard time connecting to the internet. And for us to check our Wi-Fi settings.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't recognize that voice. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what device it is.
Is it your Kindle? Or not the Alexa?
No, it's not on.
Okay.
We have such garbage internet connectivity. Alexa, we don't have that on. The Google Assistant, we certainly don't have that on.
It's Alexa.
Is it Alexa?
Yeah.
From where?
Because she donged when we said her name.
Let's do it again. Alexa. Yeah, but who turned that? Okay, this is a device that's been plugged in and charged and turned off for 6 months, and now it's on.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, we're going to take a second to play a commercial, figure out what's going on, and we'll be right back. Okay. So you're listening to the CreepGeeks Podcast, so stick around. Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, the listeners of the CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/CheapGeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/CheapGeek for your free audiobook. Enjoy this with your free trial. 30 days of membership free, plus 2 free audiobooks that are yours forever. 1 credit a month after trial, good for any book regardless of price. Exclusive member savings. Get 30% off additional audiobooks. Easy exchanges. Don't love a book? Swap it for free. Anytime, seriously. Again, that's audibletrial.com/CheapGeek for your free audiobook today. And we're back. So I appreciate you tuning back into the CreepGeeks Podcast. Just to kind of let you know, we talked about the possibility of these near-death experiences being from England because of the mirror.co.uk. The Alexa voice was in English. And we don't use Alexa because we have garbage internets.
Yeah.
Weird. Strange. I would play some spooky music, but I don't really have any, or like coincidental music. I don't really have any coincidental music.
I did want to read one last one from this life after death thing.
Sure.
And it's one that was a little further down. We'll put links to this article in the show notes for the podcast like we do everything else. But there's one in here, and it's, life after death. Is it serious? Is it weird, explicable, or is it a hoot? And Altburger69's brush with death didn't stop them from cracking jokes. Had a heart attack last year, and my heart stopped 3 times in the emergency room. Apparently, each time they shocked me back, I woke up, how it felt, and told the staff a different knock-knock joke each time. Yeah. No lights or whatever, just felt like sleep. Now, when I was a little kid, I was very, very sick. Like, very sick. But, you could tell how sick I was by how silly I was. And I was like a little toddler. And every time, like, my fever spiked past 103 or my platelet count was really low, I would tell knock-knock jokes to the point where the doctors at Tripler and Balboa were like, oh, God, let's get her in here right now. And I remember one time, I guess my fever had shot up and I was delirious and telling little silly jokes about stuff. And I guess somebody had made a balloon out of a surgeon's glove. And I started pretending hamburger helper. And the doctor's like, we're just going to put her out.
That's a sad story.
Yeah. And then I woke up like 2 days later.
If only we could do that now.
Hey.
Like with knock-knock jokes.
But, I mean,
I got one for you. Okay,
what?
go ahead and do it. Say it.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
You're doing the joke, though.
But you fell for it.
Shut up.
That's right. Well, that was neat.
Okay.
So anyway, moving back into the podcast. I mean, it's kind of weird that you have weird experiences like that guy. What if his like last thing from having a heart attack and stuff is as he moves into the darkness is him saying knock knock and nobody ever answers again?
Oh, that's horrifying.
I know.
Oh, man.
Because he'd be like, knock knock.
And now we'll never know.
And it'd be it. Or what if you're like Marco Polo and you're in a swimming pool full of kids and they're all going, Marco, and you're like, scusa, I'm Marco, and nobody's answering you. Like that commercial. Which is, I don't know why I like that one. He's just chilling. He's got his full on like Renaissance fair wear. I guess. I don't know what Marco Polo really looks like, but you know what I'm saying. It's all good. Yeah. Okay, so we've figured out what happens after death. Basically, nobody knows, and the experience is probably going to be individual to you, and whatever it is going to work out for you, right? Because my after-death experience probably would not include knock-knock jokes. I'm just saying. But maybe it's something that you really, really enjoy as a way to cope. Like maybe dude really liked Price is Right. You know what I mean? That used to be the deal, man. Whenever you were like sick and stayed home from school. Yeah. That's the only thing you could really watch was like Price is Right.
Well, you two were the same. You're the same age, right?
Yeah, we're real close.
So.
And it wasn't until later that People's Court came on. You were like, you would get, maybe you could watch like Gilligan's Island, Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith, things like that. Maybe get the Price is Right if you're lucky. Then it turned into like the soaps or the stories.
Ew.
And then, you know, maybe a cartoon like Tom and Jerry and all that stuff about 3:00 in the afternoon. So, you know, good old days. Okay, so anyway, after trying to figure out what's going on with what happens after death, evidently there's a time traveler who returns from the year like 3030 with a warning. Or 3300, I guess is what it is. Okay. Whatever, man. Doesn't matter. He's in the year 3000, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he has a dire warning. He has a chilling warning of catastrophic future he would like to give.
Okay.
Everything to stop. So I figured, hey, why not include that in here, right? It's 2020.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what's going on with 3300. So according to this time traveler who wants to protect his identity.
Of course.
You know, he claims he came back from the future to warn us all of an impending apocalypse. Yeah. But here's where it gets good. He sees the human race fight against a robot army.
Of course he does.
Yeah, because as soon as I read that, I'm like, I'm putting this in the podcast. Anytime you got a robot army,
yeah.
Are you kidding me? If it has giant monsters, ghosts, UFOs, or giant robots, it's in, man.
Okay.
Yeah. So the unnamed traveler said that there was one huge computer controlling everything, which is not controlled by a person, but makes all demands and its decisions itself.
You mean like Skynet?
It's not Skynet, Amy. It's not. It's not Skynet.
Okay.
Yeah. Even more frightening is that the computer had the power to destroy the entire planet at once.
Oh. And
speaking to the camera, the time traveler, who was tracked down in Paris but had his voice and identity changed to protect his identity, has warned us that robots will take over the world.
He says that he wasn't born... I was not born here. I was born in
3258
on December 1st in the European Empire.
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, there's a European empire.
Yeah.
We're going back to empires now. The time traveler explained that he was drafted into the army at age 18 and wore a uniform made of gold and saw everything that happened in 3260.
Yeah.
He said that in the future, they don't use fuel or gas, but instead receive energy from sun batteries. Wait, so
interesting.
3258.
See, we're starting to fall apart.
And he saw...
I was born in 3258, and I saw what happened in 3260.
So in 2 years,
yeah,
he saw everything.
Time traveler, maybe, he could go in and out. I don't know.
Or...
Maybe the article was published wrong, or maybe his story's not working. I don't know.
He was 2 years old, and he came back and...
Well, hey, the sun has sun batteries. He wears a uniform of gold, and apparently there were no trees and very few animals.
And robots were everywhere.
Yeah, that's what he hated most. Robots.
Yeah.
Damn, robots. They were everywhere.
They were not only robots, they were very clever and could take the decisions communicated with each other. When I see a robot, I will laugh at them. They are different. No one understands the problems of golden age, and at last everything will be as it should be. So this is my biggest problem with people who claim to be time travelers. And it's kind of like the Star Trek dilemma, where everything had to be explained in the TV show as an allegory that people could relate to.
Yes.
The same thing is done with these time travelers.
Yeah.
They oversimplify and they don't go into things. Younger generations, like even the generations right after me, are so familiar and so accustomed to technology that things that I went to school for, they already understand. So I would assume a time traveler would be able to speak with some level of understanding and intelligence about these robots. And I'm not seeing that here.
Well, the war began September 21st, 3300, when he was 42.
Okay.
So, and he's like, and there has never been such a war on the planet. It was fateful and tragic for all people all over the world. Together with people, there were aliens from other galaxies who also fought with the robots. People lost all technology, phones, weapons, everything. And we only had our laser automatic machines against the robots.
Okay.
So, if you could accidentally be seen in the camera, the robots appeared there immediately to kill or follow you. So, we only had one chance. The machines couldn't detect us from satellites. He said that only 800 people could hide, and they hid themselves in the ruins, deserts and forests and caves. But within 3 days, they lost all means of communication. Within a month, there were just 250 people left, and they had killed just 12 robots. So they changed their hiding places and managed to get their numbers up and starting attacking small robot groups. But after getting attacked again, the man traveled back in time, and he knew the only way to win was to destroy that life. And he thought the best way he could do that was to tell others what he saw, right? To the world in his videos, right? And he added in doing so, he hopes he could save us all from the apocalypse.
Okay.
So I've been trying to see where his YouTube channel is. And I haven't found it yet.
Yeah. I don't see. Nope.
Yeah, so there may be some discrepancies or whatever in his accounting. So I don't know.
I don't see any of this as being legitimate at all.
Robots.
Okay, sure.
Got some robots in there.
So.
Yep. Born 3258.
Saw everything that happened in
3260. Yep.
And then 3300.
He was 42.
Okay. All right.
So it just goes to tell you, don't trust the robots, right?
Don't trust time travelers.
And robots. Don't trust time traveling robots either. There's endoskeleton. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of fun to put in there. I'm like, oh man. As I read it, I'm like, this is not good.
I don't know. Every time we see one of these time traveler things pop up, I'm just like, no.
It's not a John Teeter time traveling timeline, is it?
No, it's not.
John Teeter at least had some sort of some draw to it. Eventually, we're going to be doing a John Teeter show where we talk about Teeter and some of his stories.
Okay.
Which has been pretty interesting. So, yeah. So anyway, so the time traveler returns from the year 3300 with chilling warning of the future, which pretty much all of us have to worry about. You know, is this what, 1,000 years from now, or whatever?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So anyway, Chupacabra was sighted in Georgia. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm not. Okay, this is another instance where I'm very skeptical again. However, fans of the Chupacabra know that this cryptid comes in two flavors. The traditional upright, spiked-back, reptile-like, goat blood-sucking creature that originated in Puerto Rico, and the four-legged, dog-like, furless creatures that appear much more often and don't look anywhere as frightening as their reputation would suggest.
Yeah, that's more the Southwest flavor, I think.
Yeah, so today's sighting of the second kind, but it's in a state that has its share of strange creatures and invasive species. Could this one be added to the list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, this is from Paul Seaburn.
Yeah.
Who seems to have some pretty interesting things to look at. And shockingly enough, this description that they have of this accounting of this dog, right, or demon dog, or whatever they're trying to call it, because it turned out it wasn't really a chupacabra. A better possibility of describing it is the wog, which is a demon dog, said to live in a boggy mud volcano near Winder, Georgia, mere 50 miles away from Buckland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they posted it. So in this article, there is a link to the photo.
Right.
That is clearly a dog with mange.
Yes. Clearly a mangy dog. And it just goes back to misidentification, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things where I put this in here to kind of bring up a point. And the point is that we got to trust our witnesses, right? As paranormal investigators and cryptid investigators, we go out and we ask questions and we talk to people, right? And usually it takes about 10 hot seconds to get an idea of what kind of person you're talking to.
Actually, that might be a fox.
Yeah, it's clearly not a chupacabra. It's not the little upstanding alien-looking chupacabra. And it looks more like a mangy sort of canine, like whether it's a fox or coyote or dog or whatever it winds up being.
Sadly, I've seen corpses like this in the Southwest.
Yeah. And so it's obviously not a chupacabra.
Yeah.
Now, if you're unfamiliar with what that is and you're, asked to describe it, by the time you're done with your description, I mean, it can certainly be interpreted as a chupacabra.
Yeah.
And the problem with witnesses are you got to trust your witness as much as you can. Somebody, or, who's going to have an eyewitness account and try to give a description. And I understand that if you haven't ever seen something like this before, you might describe it might sound fantastical. And that's fine. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Right? The problem I have is when you have somebody who's not familiar at all necessarily, or has a passing understanding of what it is you're talking to your witness about.
Okay.
Who may be from a different geographical location, right?
Yeah.
And they give a description of what they've seen. And then you, being effectively for, an outsider, go back and do your research, and you research long enough to try to find something that matches their description and go, see, here's what it is.
Okay. I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, oh, you think you've seen this. What you really seen was a giant horned owl. Or what you seen was a very large raccoon. Or what you seen was this.
Yeah.
And then at that point, they have totally discounted the witness completely, right? Because this person, whoever's doing the interview or this speculative sort of expert in the entire thing, has found something to sort of match the description. Yeah. And that's what they're going with. And they're using that to be skeptical, because you do want some skepticism when it comes to this sort of thing. Otherwise, everybody will believe everything, right?
Yeah.
The problem I have is sometimes if you can't explain it and it's unexplainable and you're the expert, just say you can't explain it and give off the possibilities of what it may be. And it's possible it could have been a giant horned owl or whatever.
And
right?
give as many details that the witness gives. I understand some researchers, especially the old school researchers, always want to hold a detail back because they borrow their investigation tactics from crime detectives.
Yeah, like interrogation techniques.
Yeah,
sometimes.
but it's the modern age. We have so much information at our resources, at our fingertips. Giving as much information and being as thorough will help you find the answer sooner. I understand in the paranormal community that means you're possibly taking the paranormal out of it. You're possibly destroying the magic and mysticism of it.
Fine.
But in the end, paranormal and investigation means coming to the truth.
Yes.
So finding the truth of the matter. And for me, I'm looking at this picture, and while I'm like, okay, is that a fox? The reason I'm saying that's a fox is because in my regional and travel experience, the tail on this animal is a little too long for the coyotes I've seen in the Southwest. It could be a coyote from the East Coast, but for me, I'm like, is this a fox or a dog that has? I'm not thinking Chupacabra at all. Why?
Yeah, or wog.
Or because it's so. I saw, sadly, so many animals that were mistreated or had a horrible disease in the Southwest. I know this is mange.
Yeah.
I know it's not paranormal or cryptid, sadly.
And also, if you're the investigator, and this is just kind of a little tirade, not even really tirade, just sort of a tangent.
Yeah.
When you're talking to somebody who's lived in an area for 30, 40 years, right? Mm-hmm. And they are completely familiar with all the animals in an area. And they tell you they've seen something. And you're like, oh, that's an owl. Do you think somebody who's lived in that area all their life can't tell the difference between an owl and something extraordinary or paranormal or something completely out of the ordinary?
Yeah.
That's the part that they discount that kind of bugs me. And there's some cases where it's obvious that whatever this person looked at shook them to the core for whatever reason because they couldn't identify what it was. I mean, you can say that anything looks like an owl. Like, for example, you can say Mothman looks like an owl.
Or a heron.
Yeah. Or, yeah. Okay. And that's okay. And sure. But when you have people that are from the area and they look at it and say, well, I don't think that's necessarily or whatever, it's just kind of, and I guess Mothman's probably kind of a bad example because you have people that were obviously scared and they seen something, and then you have people that seen something else, I would think, and they can identify. So but I'm just saying though,
okay,
we can't really discount the witness necessarily because you think, and for some reason, that since you're some kind of scientific expert, you're smarter than somebody who's lived there all their life.
Flatwoods Monster would be a good example.
Yeah.
That is completely, and I hate to use the word, alien for anything that those people in that area had ever witnessed or experienced in their lives. They knew that area very well. Yes, the account was a mom, a young adult, and children, but they grew up there. They knew the area, and the description of the Flatwoods Monster was so
foreign.
Yeah, unlike anything in their realm of perception, that the description that we have is probably very, very accurate.
Yeah.
And any assumptions made by researchers at the time, like the Sheriff's Department or National Guard or what have you, those are the ones that you should be upset about. It's like if they had discounted what had happened or transpired, that's the part where I kind of got mad because like the girl who saw it when she was like walking to the store with a friend.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, she's, I don't know. They discounted her,
Yeah, and that's I guess that's part of the aggravation I have is like if you get to the point where the accounting, the story, the tale, whatever that you've heard, it's been corroborated amongst other people and stuff, and you get to that point where it's like, okay, there's 5 or 6 possibilities that it may have been, but at the end of the day, none of those things actually work. Then you should probably take the story a little bit at face value and chalk it up as being, I'm not exactly sure what this is.
Yeah.
I do think these days, though, you see that more and more where people are like, especially the ones on TV.
Oh, gosh.
Because there's all these shows on TV like Unexplained Mysteries and all that sort of thing where the speculative expert isn't really saying one way or another. They just give examples of possibilities of what it may be in paranormal folklore, if you will, or in, some kind of modern, example or current, or more relevant sort of realistic example like a dog with mange. But they're not, saying this is what it is. They're just saying possibilities of what it could be. They're not making any decisions at all. You're not hammering them down. And they're not saying, oh, that footage is fake or anything like that. And they're just giving their sort of like popcorn commentary, and then it moves on to the next thing. And I watch these things all freaking day long, because we've been sort of locked in with satellite television.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing them all but the one that got me that sort of aggravated me the most was the Flatwoods Monster. quick blurb. They talked about it 3 to 5 minutes. And then at the very end, they referred back to an old investigation where the guy said they misidentified an owl as being, or a large bird of some type as being the Flatwoods Monster. Even though these kids all drew exactly the same thing as best they could, and they all had the same corroboration and stuff, they left out details like the kid got sick when he stuck his head in a cloud and all stuff. And we went to the Flatwoods Monster Museum, and we did talk to Andrew. In great and agonizing detail about a little bit of a discrepancy we thought in the investigation, and really wasn't. And that was a weird synchronous thing, too, because I actually referenced the book.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I like that book. And we talked about the book, and I just happened to buy that book off of Amazon 3 days before our trip, and I looked at it pretty quick to get more information about what we were going to go reference when we talked to Andrew. And just I bought this book off of Amazon used, because used saves money, right?
Yeah.
And it was signed by the freaking author.
Yeah.
At a paranormal convention, which is completely, so we knew we were on the right track to be on that trip.
But remember, Andrew had a problem with one of the accounts of the Flatwoods Monster?
Well, yeah.
And we talked about that because it was, again, the initial experiences and what the people perceive versus the later accounts or the later justifications,
Yeah. But it made sense if you really looked at it from like a different perspective, you know. If you look at it, because I guess that's part of it too. You can look at it from sort of a nuts and bolts sort of logical progression, but you really have to factor in the human side of it. Like one of the issues that Andrew and you had were the sort of discrepancies in the story and the timeline and why they drove that particular route that they did. But it made sense at the time if you were new to the area and traveling and you used a map.
Yeah.
Like you would go that way if you used the map. You know what I mean? But if you were familiar with the area, you wouldn't go that way because it actually takes you out of your way. That sort of thing.
Yeah, right? The whole old backroads rum runner type route.
Right.
Trying to avoid the law.
And that's kind of like one of those things where, okay, if you look at it from a nuts and bolts perspective and you're just checking off checks on your little investigation box, if you don't factor in why humans do what they do, sometimes it doesn't make sense. And then you automatically want to discount the unreliable part of the entire thing, which is usually your witness.
Yeah.
Usually your witnesses aren't reliable because you're trained. And the way a lot of people do their witness in sort of investigations and stuff is they ask questions to determine where or there may be some falsities. You know what I mean? Yeah. And a lot of people go to it like that. Like they know the idea of the story that they've heard and they're there to investigate, but they go ahead and they ask questions to try to see where the discrepancies lie so that you can point out the differences. And by using those differences, then you can determine how truthful or how relevant that experience actually is in terms of like paranormal, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing it that way.
True.
These people are telling you a story or a recounting of an event or whatever it winds up being. You kind of got to look at it as being, why would they tell you this and what is their motive behind it and everything that goes along with somebody doing you a favor by sitting down and talking to you. You know what I mean?
Well, like the same thing could be said for the modern Flatwoods Monster account that we reported on in New Mexico. Because where was it reported?
Well, what we thought may be related.
Yeah.
Because they had some similarities.
Some strong similarities, but it was reported at Cerro, which is Pot Mountain.
Yeah.
You know, and these guys are very matter of fact, very,
Yeah.
They're not
crossbow hunters, man. They don't know anything about this sort
like
of thing.
Elk hunters that sit there for days, and they're very practical people. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's something to this. And the details that they gave, very matter of fact. And in the area that they're in, the situation and experience was so otherworldly. I believe they saw what they saw,
Yeah.
But the fact that they went to the press, they told their story, and they accounted for what happened, and no more, no embellishment, no nothing else. It was enough to, in the press or in the general public opinion.
It wound up being a quick blurb and was gone.
The public opinion, though, was, it's Pot Mountain and it's, New Mexico.
Well, it was kind of a joke. It became a little bit of a joke. But, we've seen some of the similarities between the two. And the only difference between what we looked at would be, if you look at it, matter of fact, some of the points weren't the same and didn't really make sense. However, if you add about 50 plus years of advancements between here and there, it could kind of make sense. But anyway, moving back along and back into the podcast.
Sure, yeah.
It kind of goes into this. Unsolved Mysteries. Right?
Yeah.
Unsolved Mysteries is coming back. And that show, hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Everybody knows Unsolved Mysteries.
You know, there was an episode that kept me awake for like 2 months when I was a little kid. My parents...
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
See, now my Unsolved Mysteries, because I'm way older than you.
Okay.
You know, by like 40 years or so, was In Search Of in the 70s.
Yeah.
With Leonard Nimoy, where that's what kind of got me interested in the paranormal. So Unsolved Mysteries comes along, got the creepy music. It's an unsolved mystery. You got the creepy narration and the weird sort of low-budget storytelling that's going on. Just like, to me, in a lot of ways, In Search Of.
Yeah.
And it had its own little flair because it was sort of like low budget, you know, even though it was broadcast television, low budget sort of theme, creepy and all that kind of stuff. And it is the narration, right? Well, anyway, they're bringing it back because it's been gone for a while.
And I'm excited.
Well, I am too, but I watched the trailer for it and it's coming back on Netflix, by the way, if you want to watch this kind of thing. And it's just kind of, I don't know, man. It's kind of missing something, I think. It's just kind of like, well... And so when I was going through kind of taking a look, I found an article because I was actually trying to find when it's coming back on TV because we knew about it for a little while. We talked about it, but there really wasn't anything to sort of sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
So there's a trailer on Netflix now that you can watch, actually on YouTube, but it's going to be on Netflix and it kind of talks a little bit about it, but it kind of covers a little bit of stories. It's sort of an overview, but I found an article on the Nerdist.com and it sort of talks a little bit about Unsolved Mysteries, where it lays out some of the first stories, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, it does the whole, like, Ray Riviera was a happy man by all accounts, you know? And you're like, ooh, here it goes. But the article that they wrote was like, okay, it's a good thing and a bad thing the way they're actually doing the show. Because if you kind of go back into the history, the original series was hosted by Robert Stack. He's the original. He did it from, like, 1987 to 2002.
Yeah.
And then Dennis Farina did it as a reboot from 2008 to 2010. But this return is different, not only because it's streaming and it's bingeable, which means you get to watch them all, right, which is great.
Yeah.
Well, because it's a more sleek and streamlined version of the show.
Okay.
Which is a good or a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Gone are the silly reenactments that made the original show so memorable, which is what I liked, because it kind of had that sort of cops kind of flair to it, maybe a little bit.
But some of the
Or not cops. What was that show? It's going to bug me now. America's Most Wanted, right? That's what it was. It's a more sophisticated version of Unsolved Mysteries. It's got attractive B-roll footage. There's no host this time around, which kind of makes sense. So,
see, for me, as a little kid, the reenactments kind of messed me up.
That was the best part.
I mean, because they weren't cheesy or silly. They kind of frightened me.
Yeah, and you had the spooky host.
Yeah.
Robert Stack. He come popping out of the shadows and the fog and stuff.
Oh, I know what you're thinking, like the reenactments from like Forensic Files and shows like that or something. Maybe.
No.
Okay.
No, not Forensic Files. Well, I mean, but every show kind of did it for a while. But America's Most Wanted was one that, when we talked about this, remember I talked about when America's Most Wanted first came out and it was like pretty popular show, but the actors that were doing the portrayals of being the criminals were being arrested.
Oh, yeah.
Because people would call in, yeah, I seen that guy.
He was doing laundry.
Yeah, and so these guys were getting arrested because they were the actors in the show kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, so each episode is dedicated to a single mystery instead of like a 4 per hour kind of a thing, which is cool because it gives a little bit more information into the story so it can do more details, but it's kind of also a little bit of a detriment. Some of the episodes and another about UFO sightings and stuff like that, you know, you get the full hour, but some of those don't have enough information to go the full hour is what they were saying. And I can totally see this because when I watched the trailer, I'm like, I'm going to watch it because it's Unsolved Mysteries and we're going to go find somewhere and download them so we can watch them.
Yeah.
But I think if they're going to take away some of the stuff that actually made the show good, which was some of the cheesy effects and the reenactments and the spooky narration and then, you know, what's the point?
Yeah. I like the screen grab from the trailer because that just screams like some dusty, like southwestern corner of southern New Mexico that nobody goes to.
But you're not going to get that in the show. You're going to get beautiful B-roll.
Oh, man. See?
And where's the grittiness? You kind of want all that stuff, you know, because they're going to be doing everything from like Bigfoots to aliens to ghosts to murders and unsolved stuff. And so you get that. You know, the old episodes were good and they scared the crap out of everybody, right? And it's like the reenactments, the constant repetition of the trademark theme, which is that haunting music, right?
Yeah.
The haunting narration and the mysteries themselves.
Well, I wonder who's going to narrate.
Yeah, that's kind of what I don't think anybody's really narrating it. That's the whole thing. So you've got John Cosgrove and Terry Dunn Muir. They created the original series. And they teamed up with Stranger Things executive producer Sean Levy.
Ooh.
And Stranger Things is pretty cool. And it kind of makes sense. Just Stranger Things from the 80s, kind of supposed to be set in the 80s, kind of creepy, all that sort of thing. Yeah. Right? It kind of makes sense. But this fancier version of Unsolved Mysteries, according to this article, basically says will work better for younger audiences stumbling onto the show for the very first time. And since technically reenactments are a thing of the past, and probably for good reason, it doesn't stop this version of the series from feeling more like a polished ghost of its former self.
Man.
So hopefully, you'll be able to kind of draw some of it. But they say we're glad some of the relics remain, like the ability to call or email with any leads. But come on, man, that was part of the show because that's what made the show more realistic in some ways was the cheesy reenactment. Right. And being able to call with your tips and all that sort of thing. Cause they were really sort of working off the whole, America's Most Wanted and the other shows like that. But
hoping, because this is the part that I just remembered, hoping that in a month or next season, they'll post an update, which they would do sometimes.
Yeah.
That was the cool part. Cause I remember there was I think it was like a bank robbery that went really weird because everybody disappeared, but somebody was murdered, and they posted an update. They're like, but it was a tragic update because I guess the bank robber showed up dead.
Yeah. Well, and you've seen this just like America's Most Wanted, where you'd start out the show and it'd be like last week when we talked about so and so, and updates and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. So I'm excited to see it come back, but at the same time, if it's going to be too polished and too modern and too whatever, then it's not going to be worth watching, man.
You know what it reminds me of? It's starting to remind me like this is going to turn out to be almost like a true crime podcast, but in visual form.
Which is okay, I guess, but
that's what podcasts are for.
Wait, I know. And there was like basically an argument saying that with, today being the way it is and information at your fingertips, there's no point in dragging things out. And doing all the reenactments and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, you're just missing the entire point of the entire show.
Well, I mean,
because they forget there's like, I don't know, a kabillion older people that would watch it because it is kind of the old throwback to what they want.
Okay. So to kind of go with that argument though, a good example, and I hate good as a relative word here, would be, Shane Dawson's conspiracy series. I mean, he did that whole, Chuck E. Cheese pizza thing and that went.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
a lot of people probably don't know who Shane Dawson is listening to the podcast, but he did take some sort of, he liked Unsolved Mysteries, and it was obvious that was sort of some of the stylistic themes he was going for, and it worked.
Yeah,
but there was no reenactments because it was more of a matter of fact sort of docu thing. But
yeah, but he got the response, he got that audience participation. He had people not call and email in, but they interacted. They said, "Hey, here's our follow-up evidence as well."
Yeah. When I watched the trailer, I'm like, this is not what I expected. It's kind of not what I'm looking for. So, I mean, I get it's modern and all that stuff. So, I don't know. The point of the entire thing was basically that, hey, if you ever liked Unsolved Mysteries and you were growing up watching that kind of thing, and chances are with like over 300 plus episodes, you've probably seen a couple. It's coming back July 1st on Netflix. You can watch it. We'll see how well it goes. Who knows? They might change it up if it gets a second sort of, running, because people are going to go, not the same as the old, that kind of thing. You're missing some people,
man. I would love it if they covered that hotel in California where that lady passed away and all sorts of weird stuff happened. We've talked about it on the podcast. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's really broad. But
I know.
Yeah, that one time when this happened.
She was found in a water tank. That one.
Oh.
And the elevator thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the same place, but yeah.
I would like them to do that one because it had all sorts of weird murders too. So
strange.
Yeah, that's the stuff I want them to tackle.
Yeah, but all they would do is send out a crew, run some B-roll footage, and then do a little. Well, they can't really do a reenactment, so I don't know. Anyway, this is kind of what we kind of put in there because I was excited to see it come back. We actually had talked about this a couple weeks ago. But there really wasn't like a trailer to watch or anything like that. And we do have links in the show notes. So if you're going to go in there and you want to watch it, or if you just want to use the Googles and do Unsolved Mysteries Reboot, you'll find it. But I did do some quick search because I wanted to do a quick search to see if they were going to do narration or what they were going to do. And I found this to be strange. And this is where we're going to kind of wrap the podcast up with, is that people basically put William Shatner and Unsolved Mysteries together because they thought that William Shatner was going to narrate Unsolved Mysteries. Oh, and I never thought about that, but he's actually doing his own. He's doing the unexplained.
Yeah.
But as a narrator for Unsolved Mysteries, I could totally see him doing that now.
Man.
Now, he's not really as spooky as like Robert Stack, but Robert Stack his delivery was a little strange, but William Shatner could totally do narration for Unsolved Mysteries. And why not?
Ooh.
Because he does have the flair for the dramatic, and he is kind of from that time frame. He's been around for a long time. He can make it spooky, and I like that show, The Unexplained, when I catch it.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of giving him free reign. They're like, hey, man, because the first couple episodes, he was really stiff and sort of weird. Now they're just like, do it, man. You just be you, Bill Shatner. Because that's the thing about William Shatner.
I know who I'd want.
He's going to be William Shatner no matter what.
Bill Curtis. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's already done shows. He does like Forensic Files, didn't he?
He does American Justice, or did American Justice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's already known for other stuff. You kind of got to find somebody that would, he's got to be a distinctive voice, and I don't know. So anyway, that about wraps up the podcast.
So,
man, this Sahara dust cloud nicknamed Godzilla since our last podcast is getting in my throat.
Yeah.
Yep. So we kind of talked about Chupacabra, Unsolved Mysteries, a little COVID-19 action, some recalls for you, right? And some life and death stories, and a time traveler warning.
And a long tangent about a phone operating system we can't remember.
No, Kai OS is what we figured out. A little bit of a rant of like trust your interviewees, if you will. It just bugs me. Stop discounting your interviewees, right? Is that if you're the interviewer and you're interviewing someone?
Yeah, interviewee.
There you go.
Yeah.
Trust them. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks for listening.
Oh yeah, guys.
And we'll see you later.
Be sure to check us out on Facebook. Also, if you like what you're hearing, you can always check out our Patreon. Our Patreon includes extra episodes, additional unreleased videos. You get first peek at new videos that we come out with, and our Patreon supporters are thanked and acknowledged. They are the ones that help keep the podcast going. This month this episode, we want to thank Dave, Adam, James, Bobby, John, and John. So if you want to support us, cool. That's going to be patreon.com/CreepGeeks. Also, if you check out the CreepGeeks store, the link is going to be in the show notes for this podcast episode. We do still have Bigfoot Bold Coffee, and I've come out with my Crafted Intent line. That's going to be exclusive handmade jewelry from me with that spooky edge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, I swallowed like a huge dust ball or something.
I was trying to get that out so that they could hear it. So
it just came up on me out of nowhere.
Thanks, guys, for listening. If you have any feedback about this show or you want to talk to us, contact at creepgeeks.com. You can also always give us a call and leave a message, 575-208-4025.
Yeah.
That's it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Weird, man. All the throat dust. Oh, and, we had a weird Alexa incident. It's kind of a strange thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Maybe that's an unsolved mystery. So anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.